Hello and welcome back to Rising Path. We have a powerful partial lunar eclipse in Pisces on August 28th, bringing the eclipse season to a close. This eclipse will be visible across North and South America, as well as parts of Europe and Africa. In some areas, the moon will be low on the horizon during the eclipse, so visibility will depend on location and local conditions. Lunar eclipses often bring something to a turning point. They can reveal what has been building beneath the surface, bring clarity to situations that have felt uncertain, and show where something has reached the end of its natural cycle. With the moon in Pisces and the sun in Virgo, this eclipse highlights the balance between intuition and practical reality, between what is felt internally and what needs to be handled in everyday life. Pisces is sensitive, intuitive, imaginative, and deeply connected with what cannot always be explained logically. Virgo looks for order, clarity, improvement, and practical solutions. During this eclipse, these two very different energies are facing one another. Something may become clearer that was previously difficult to understand. Emotions that have been pushed aside can become harder to ignore, and situations that have remained uncertain may begin to show their true direction. Because this is a lunar eclipse, the focus is often on culmination, awareness, and release rather than simply beginning something new. What comes to the surface around this time can reveal what is no longer working in the same way and where an adjustment may be necessary. This is also the second eclipse of August, following the total solar eclipse in Leo on August 12th. The solar eclipse opened a new chapter, while this lunar eclipse can reveal what needs to be cleared or understood before that new chapter can develop properly. The house where Pisces falls in the birth chart shows the area of life where this eclipse is likely to be felt most strongly. For some rising signs, this may involve relationships or career, while for others the focus may fall on finances, family, communication, personal direction, or inner emotional patterns. And if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. Visit the Rising Path website, where you can book a consultation for a more personal look at how this eclipse may be affecting your chart. Let's begin with Aries Ascendant. Aries Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your 12th house, bringing attention to the private and less visible part of your chart. The 12th house is connected with the inner world, what happens behind the scenes, patterns that are not always easy to recognize, and the need to occasionally withdraw from external pressures to understand what is happening internally. With the lunar eclipse here, something that has been developing quietly may become much more noticeable. An emotion, realization, or situation that has remained in the background could finally reach a point where it can no longer be ignored. This can be an important period for recognizing what has been taking more energy than you realized. There may be habits, emotional attachments, or situations that have continued simply because they were familiar, even though they no longer have the same place in your life. Pisces in the 12th house can make this especially subtle. The changes may begin internally before anything becomes obvious on the outside. There can be stronger intuition, vivid dreams, memories returning, or a greater awareness of feelings that have been difficult to put into words. At the same time, the sun in Virgo is moving through your 6th house, highlighting work, responsibilities, routines, and the practical demands of everyday life. This creates an important contrast between what needs to be handled externally and what is happening internally. You may realize that your schedule, responsibilities, or daily habits need to change because they are leaving too little space for your emotional and mental well-being. Something may need to be simplified so that there is a healthier balance between productivity and private time. This eclipse can also reveal situations happening behind the scenes. Information may become available that changes how you understand something, or you may simply see a situation more clearly because you are no longer looking at it from the same emotional position. For some Aries, this can feel like quietly closing an old chapter. It does not necessarily require a dramatic external change. Sometimes the most important shift is realizing that something no longer has the same influence over you. Pay attention to what becomes clear around this eclipse, particularly anything connected with repeated emotional patterns, private concerns, or situations that have remained unresolved. The 12th house often works quietly, so the full meaning of this eclipse may not be immediately obvious. What begins as an internal realization can gradually change the way you approach your everyday life. For Aries, this partial lunar eclipse is about clearing space internally, understanding what has been operating beneath the surface, and recognizing what is ready to be left behind so that the next chapter can develop with greater clarity. Taurus Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your 11th house, bringing attention to friendships, social connections, groups, and the plans you have been developing for the future. The 11th house describes the people you connect with beyond your immediate personal circle, but it also represents longer-term goals and the direction you hope your life will move toward. With the lunar eclipse here, something connected with a friendship, group, or future plan may reach an important turning point. A connection could become clearer, or you may begin to recognize that certain people no longer fit naturally with where your life is heading. This does not necessarily mean that a friendship has to end. It can simply show that expectations are changing. Someone may reveal more about their intentions, or circumstances could make it easier to understand which relationships feel supportive and which have gradually become more distant. Pisces in the 11th house can sometimes create idealistic expectations around friendships and groups. This eclipse may help you see a situation more realistically without losing compassion for the people involved. There can also be developments around a goal that has been important for some time. Something you once wanted may no longer feel as meaningful, or a plan may need to be adjusted because circumstances have changed. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your 5th house, bringing attention to personal interests, creativity, enjoyment, and self-expression. This creates a contrast between what others expect and what genuinely feels meaningful to you personally. You may realize that too much attention has been going toward fitting into a group or supporting other people's plans, while your own interests have been receiving less attention. For some Taurus, this eclipse can bring a change within a social circle. Someone may move away, a group may change direction, or your involvement may naturally become different. It can also bring greater clarity around the people who genuinely share your values and the goals that still deserve your energy. Pay attention to changes involving friendships, communities, and longer-term plans. What becomes visible around this eclipse can help you understand where your social world is changing and which goals still belong in your future. For Taurus, this partial lunar eclipse is about recognizing where connections and aspirations have evolved and becoming more selective about the people and plans that continue forward with you. Gemini Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your 10th house, bringing attention to career, responsibilities, reputation, and the direction your public life is taking. The 10th house is one of the most visible areas of the chart. It describes professional goals, achievement, authority, and the way your work or responsibilities are seen by others. With the lunar eclipse here, something connected with career or your public position may reach an important stage. A professional situation that has been developing for some time could become clearer, and there may be a decision, completion, or change in responsibility. For some Gemini, this can bring greater visibility. Work that has been developing quietly may receive recognition, or other people may begin to notice the role you have been playing. For others, the eclipse can reveal that a professional situation no longer feels aligned with where you want to go. Responsibilities may have increased, expectations may have changed, or the direction you were following may need to be reconsidered. Pisces in the 10th house can sometimes make professional direction feel less defined. There may have been uncertainty about what comes next, or difficulty knowing exactly where a situation is leading. This eclipse can begin to bring greater awareness. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your 4th house, highlighting home, family, and your private foundation. This creates a strong contrast between public responsibilities and what is happening in your personal life. A career decision may be influenced by family circumstances, living arrangements, or the need for greater stability at home. Equally, professional changes could affect where or how you live. There may be an important realization about how much energy has been going toward external achievement and whether your private life is supporting the direction you are taking. For some Gemini, this eclipse can mark the completion of a professional chapter. A role, project, or responsibility may reach its natural conclusion, creating space for something different to develop. Pay attention to developments involving career, authority figures, recognition, and long-term professional goals. For Gemini, this partial lunar eclipse can bring greater clarity about where your professional life is heading and what needs to change so that external responsibilities and your private foundation can support one another more effectively. Cancer Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your ninth house, bringing attention to learning, travel, personal beliefs, and the way you understand the wider world. The ninth house expands perspective. It is connected with higher education, teaching, publishing, international matters, and experiences that move you beyond what is already familiar. With the lunar eclipse here, something connected with one of these areas may reach an important stage. A course of study may be completed, travel plans may change, or a subject you have been exploring could lead to a significant realization. There may also be a shift in perspective. An idea or belief that once seemed certain may begin to look different because new information or experience has changed the way you understand it. Pisces in the ninth house can create a very intuitive approach to learning and meaning. You may have followed something because it felt right even when there was not a clear logical explanation. This eclipse can help separate what still feels meaningful from what has become too uncertain or difficult to define. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your third house, emphasizing communication, information, paperwork, everyday learning, and the immediate environment. This creates an important contrast between the bigger picture and the details directly in front of you. You may have an important conversation, receive information, or discover a practical detail that changes your understanding of a much larger situation. For some Cancer, there can be developments involving education, publishing, legal matters, or international connections. Something that has been in progress may reach a decision or become easier to understand. This eclipse can also change how you communicate what you know. There may be a growing desire to teach, share information, or speak about something from a more informed position. Pay attention to ideas that are changing and information that challenges previous assumptions. For Cancer, this partial lunar eclipse is about seeing a larger situation differently, recognizing how much your perspective has developed, and becoming clearer about which ideas and experiences still belong in the direction ahead. Leo Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your eighth house, bringing attention to shared resources, financial agreements, trust, and situations where your life is closely connected with someone else's. The eighth house deals with what is shared rather than what belongs entirely to you. This can include joint finances, investments, taxes, insurance, financial support, and other practical arrangements involving another person or organization. With the lunar eclipse here, one of these situations may reach an important turning point. A financial arrangement could be completed, changed, or brought into clearer focus. Information may become available that helps you understand exactly where you stand, particularly if something has previously been uncertain or difficult to define. Pisces in the eighth house can sometimes blur financial or emotional boundaries. There may have been assumptions about what someone would contribute, what was expected from you, or how secure an arrangement actually was. This eclipse can make those boundaries easier to see. The eighth house is also connected with trust and deeper emotional connections. Something may be revealed that changes how comfortable you feel depending on another person or sharing responsibility with them. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your second house, highlighting personal income, possessions, financial security, and the resources that belong directly to you. This creates a contrast between personal independence and what is shared with others. You may realize that a financial agreement needs to be reorganized so that responsibilities are clearer. There can also be a stronger desire to know that your own resources are stable rather than relying too heavily on someone else's situation. For some Leo, this eclipse can bring the completion of an ongoing financial matter, allowing greater clarity about what is available and what needs to be handled differently. Pay attention to developments involving shared money, agreements, support, and trust. For Leo, this partial lunar eclipse is about becoming clear about what is shared, understanding where responsibilities belong, and creating healthier boundaries between your own resources and the commitments that connect you with others. Virgo Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your seventh house, bringing attention to relationships, partnerships, agreements, and the people you deal with one-to-one. The seventh house describes close personal and professional partnerships. It also shows how you cooperate, negotiate, and respond to the needs and expectations of another person. With the lunar eclipse here, an important relationship may reach a turning point. Something that has been developing between you and another person can become much clearer. For some Virgo, this may bring greater commitment or a decision about the future of a partnership. For others, it may reveal differences that have become increasingly difficult to overlook. Pisces in the seventh house can sometimes make relationship boundaries less defined. You may have been giving someone the benefit of the doubt, waiting for greater clarity, or trying to understand a situation that has remained uncertain. This eclipse can make it easier to see what is actually happening rather than what you hoped might happen. There may also be a change in a professional agreement, contract, or working partnership. Expectations could need to be discussed more clearly so that both sides understand what is required. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your first house, putting greater emphasis on your own identity, priorities, and personal direction. This creates an important contrast between what another person needs and what you need for yourself. You may become more aware of where too much compromise has taken place, or where your own preferences have been pushed aside to maintain a relationship. For some Virgo, this eclipse can strengthen an important partnership because a conversation finally brings greater understanding. For others, clarity may show that the relationship needs to operate differently. The important part is recognizing what has changed. Pay attention to what another person reveals through their words, decisions, or actions. For Virgo, this partial lunar eclipse is about seeing relationships more clearly, understanding where balance needs to be restored, and making sure that partnership does not require losing sight of your own direction. Libra Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your sixth house, bringing attention to work, routines, responsibilities, and the habits that shape everyday life. The sixth house is practical. It describes what needs to be handled consistently, including work obligations, schedules, and the systems that keep daily life functioning. With the lunar eclipse here, something connected with your routine may reach a point where it needs to change. A work situation could shift, responsibilities may be reorganized, or you may become increasingly aware that your current schedule is no longer manageable in the same way. Pisces in the sixth house can sometimes make routines less structured. Responsibilities may have gradually expanded without clear boundaries, or you may have been adapting to circumstances rather than following a system that genuinely works for you. This eclipse can highlight where greater organization is needed. There may also be stronger awareness of how daily habits affect physical and emotional well-being. A pattern that seemed minor could become more noticeable, encouraging practical adjustments. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your 12th house, bringing attention to the private world, what happens behind the scenes, and the mental or emotional pressures that are not always visible to other people. This creates an important connection between what is happening internally and the way your everyday life is structured. You may realize that a demanding schedule has been leaving too little personal space, or that something happening privately has been affecting concentration, motivation, or productivity. For some Libra, the eclipse can bring a change in the workplace, a project reaching completion, or a responsibility being removed or reassigned. It may also become obvious that certain tasks need to be handled more efficiently rather than simply adding more to an already full schedule. Pay attention to what repeatedly feels difficult to maintain. For Libra, this partial lunar eclipse is about recognizing which routines are genuinely supporting you, clearing unnecessary responsibilities, and creating a daily structure that works more effectively with what is happening beneath the surface. Scorpio Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your fifth house, bringing attention to creativity, personal interests, children, enjoyment, and the things that allow you to express more of yourself. The fifth house represents what feels personally meaningful rather than what is done simply because it is expected. With a lunar eclipse here, something connected with a creative project or personal interest may reach an important stage. Work that has required significant personal energy could be completed, presented, or taken in a different direction. There may also be a realization about what genuinely brings satisfaction. An activity that was once important may no longer hold the same interest, while something that had been pushed aside could suddenly feel much more significant. Pisces in the fifth house can create strong imagination and emotional investment in creative interests. At times, however, it can also make it difficult to know whether an idea is realistic or whether too much has been projected onto a situation. This eclipse can bring greater clarity. For some Scorpio, attention may turn toward children or younger family members. A situation involving them may reach an important stage or require more direct attention. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your 11th house, highlighting friendships, groups, and longer-term goals. This creates a contrast between what matters personally and what you are doing as part of a wider group or future plan. You may realize that your own interests have been receiving less attention because too much energy has been going toward other people's expectations or collective responsibilities. There can also be changes within friendships that influence how confident you feel expressing yourself. For some Scorpio, this eclipse marks a moment when a personal project becomes visible to other people or when a creative interest begins to take on greater importance. Pay attention to what you feel genuinely drawn toward rather than what you think you should be interested in. For Scorpio, this partial lunar eclipse is about reconnecting with personal expression, understanding what still brings genuine satisfaction, and allowing more space for the interests and projects that reflect who you are becoming. Sagittarius Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your 4th house, bringing attention to home, family, living arrangements, and your private emotional foundation. The 4th house represents the part of life that other people do not always see. It describes where you live, family relationships, your sense of belonging, and the foundation underneath everything happening externally. With a lunar eclipse here, something connected with home or family may reach an important turning point. A living arrangement could change, a household situation may need to be reorganized, or a family matter that has been developing for some time could become clearer. Pisces in the 4th house can make family situations emotionally complicated because boundaries are not always clearly defined. You may have been absorbing other people's concerns or trying to maintain harmony without fully recognizing how much it was affecting you. This eclipse can reveal where greater separation between your needs and someone else's emotions may be necessary. For some Sagittarius, there can be changes involving property, moving, renovations, or decisions about where you want to live. There may also be a stronger awareness of what actually creates a sense of security rather than simply remaining with what is familiar. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your 10th house, emphasizing career, responsibilities, and public expectations. This creates a strong contrast between private life and professional obligations. A career decision could affect the home, or changes within the family may influence what you are able or willing to take on professionally. You may recognize that maintaining external responsibilities has required more from your private life than you previously acknowledged. For some Sagittarius, this eclipse represents the completion of a chapter connected with family or home. Pay attention to what changes within your private world and to the emotional reactions that come with those changes. For Sagittarius, this partial lunar eclipse is about strengthening your foundation, becoming clearer about what you need from your home and family environment, and making changes that allow your private life and public responsibilities to work together more comfortably. Capricorn Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your 3rd house, bringing attention to communication, information, learning, and the way you interact with the people and environment around you. The 3rd house is connected with conversations, writing, paperwork, siblings, neighbors, everyday travel, and the information you deal with regularly. With the lunar eclipse here, an important conversation or piece of information may change the way you understand a situation. Something that has been discussed repeatedly could finally reach a conclusion, or information that was previously missing may become available. Pisces in the 3rd house can sometimes make communication less direct. There may have been misunderstandings, assumptions, or situations where nobody was saying exactly what they meant. This eclipse can bring those issues into clearer focus. You may become more conscious of how you communicate and whether people are understanding your intentions correctly. Equally, something another person says may reveal much more than expected. There can also be developments involving siblings or someone in your immediate environment. A situation involving them may require a decision or may simply become easier to understand. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your ninth house, emphasizing education, travel, broader ideas, and the larger meaning behind the information you are receiving. This creates a contrast between individual details and the bigger picture. A small piece of information can change your understanding of something much larger. A conversation may influence future plans, or something learned could encourage you to reconsider a previous opinion. For some Capricorn, this eclipse can coincide with completing a course, finishing paperwork, or reaching the end of an extended conversation or negotiation. Pay attention to information that repeats or arrives unexpectedly. For Capricorn, this partial lunar eclipse is about seeing communication more clearly, resolving misunderstandings, and recognizing how new information can change the broader perspective you have been developing. Aquarius Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your second house, bringing attention to income, possessions, personal resources, and the way you create financial security. The second house describes what belongs directly to you and how effectively you use the resources available. With the lunar eclipse here, a financial situation may reach an important stage. There could be a change in income, an expense that needs to be handled, or greater clarity about whether a particular financial arrangement is sustainable. Pisces in the second house can sometimes make money matters difficult to define clearly. Income may fluctuate, expenses may be underestimated, or financial decisions can be influenced by emotion rather than practical information. This eclipse can expose where greater clarity is needed. You may begin to see more clearly where money has been going and whether certain financial habits are supporting the security you want to create. There can also be a shift in priorities. Something you once considered important may no longer feel worth the financial or personal investment it requires. The second house is also connected with personal values. This eclipse may reveal how much those values have changed and whether current decisions still reflect what matters to you. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your eighth house, highlighting shared resources, financial agreements, and obligations involving another person or organization. This creates a contrast between what belongs to you and what is shared. A joint financial situation may need to be reorganized so that responsibilities are clearer. You may also recognize where relying on another person's resources has made your own financial position more difficult to evaluate. For some Aquarius, the eclipse can bring the completion of a financial arrangement or a decision that makes personal finances easier to understand. Pay attention to what becomes clearer around income, spending, and financial priorities. For Aquarius, this partial lunar eclipse is about understanding your resources more realistically, recognizing where financial habits need to change, and strengthening the sense of security that comes from knowing exactly where you stand. Pisces Ascendant. The partial lunar eclipse in Pisces falls in your first house, making this eclipse especially personal and bringing attention directly to identity, personal direction, and the way you present yourself to the world. The first house represents you. It describes how you approach life, the choices you make independently, and the version of yourself that other people encounter. With a lunar eclipse here, something within your personal life may reach an important turning point. You may become much more aware of how much you have changed and how differently you now feel about circumstances that once seemed acceptable. Because the eclipse is happening in Pisces, emotions can be especially noticeable. Feelings that have been building quietly may become difficult to ignore, and there can be a strong realization that something needs to change because you no longer relate to it in the same way. This can affect personal goals, appearance, priorities, or simply the way you want to move through life. For some Pisces, other people may notice the changes before you have fully explained them. You may become more direct about what you want, more selective about what you accept, or less willing to continue playing a role that no longer feels natural. At the same time, the Sun in Virgo is moving through your seventh house, highlighting relationships, partnerships, and agreements. This creates a strong contrast between your own direction and the expectations of another person. A relationship may become an important mirror during this eclipse. Someone else's response can help you recognize how much your priorities have changed. There may need to be a new balance between maintaining an important partnership and making decisions that are right for you individually. For some Pisces, a relationship becomes clearer because you are finally clearer about yourself. This does not automatically mean separation or conflict. It can also create an opportunity to redefine a partnership so that both people have a stronger understanding of what they need. Pay attention to how you feel when you are making decisions for yourself compared with decisions made mainly to accommodate someone else. For Pisces, this partial lunar eclipse is about recognizing personal change, becoming clear about who you are at this stage of life, and allowing relationships and circumstances to adjust to the person you have become.